What's happening here? How does mess happen? How am I always doing my best to keep things in order, yet can't seem to maintain said order for more than a handful of days of that? These are among the greatest mysteries of our time and will likely remain unsolved. That being said, I got a new bookshelf, so let's once more attempt to put order to this dumpster fire. Before we begin, let's look through the crime scene and the most egregious offenses. Okay, we're starting here. Dry flower, sure, why not keep trash there? Okay, so the books are somewhat in order, but oh my god, what am I keeping around them? And then here we have whatever, sci-fi is dying in dust up there. Then we have some middle grade fantasy for some reason up there. And then some random other fantasy. Yeah, put a bunch of books on top of those, why not? Half-burnt candle, mess, more mess, Lord of the Rings mess, general fantasy mess, white book mess, sure, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, manga, graphic novels, middle grade mess. Oh, look here. What is this? What is that? What the hell is this? I guess it's time to build a bookshelf. So now that the bookshelf is built, we only have the hard part remaining, sorting the books. So this is the end result. We can begin from here, maybe?
As it turns out, I am not as great at filming dynamic footage as I thought I was, which is why we will do this part with still shots and a voiceover. Okay, so we're starting with the Brandon Sanderson shelf, where we have from left to right the Rhythmatist, right under it we have the entire Skyward series, and then to the right of them we have the special leather-bound edition of The Way of Kings, as well as the Dawn Shard novella. Okay, so right under this shelf we have yet another Brandon Sanderson shelf. Starting from the left, we have Skyward and Starside in very special Bulgarian editions. Then next to them we have Elantris, and then next to it we have The Way of Kings and The Rhythm of War. They are next to each other because both of them are hardback editions, followed by Words of Radiance and Oathbringer in paperback editions, and a very special edition of The Rhythm of War in Bulgarian. And then to the right of those, we have at the bottom the first era of the Mistborn series, then the next three books in the second era of the Mistborn series, followed by Warbreaker, and finally on top, Arcanum Unbounded. We continue right under with the George R. R. Martin dedicated shelf, where we have The World of Ice and Fire in Bulgarian, then the entire A Song of Ice and Fire series, again in Bulgarian, then we have an illustrated edition of A Game of Thrones, and then an illustrated edition of A Clash of Kings, then Fire and Blood, followed by The Ice Dragon in Bulgarian, a leather-bound box set of A Song of Ice and Fire, and then the mass-market paperbacks of the entire series are stuck right behind the box set due to the lack of space. Under that, we have a Tolkien shelf. From left to right, we have the Lord of the Rings trilogy in paperback with the new cover design, then the Lord of the Rings plus the Hobbit box set, Then a paperback of The Two Towers with an older cover design, which you can't find anymore. I managed to find it secondhand buried in a very old bookstore. Then we have again the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I bought this one because I wanted to remake the covers into hardbacks myself. I only got to the first one and it's still not finished, but who knows, maybe one day. Then we have Beren and Luthien, The Silmarillion, and The Fall of Gondolin, followed by a gorgeous box set of illustrated editions of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And lastly on this shelf we have a Middle-earth traveler with sketches from Bag End to Mordor. We continue with the white bookshelf, which contains some of my favorite adult fantasy. We begin with the entirety of the Faithful and the Fallen series, followed by the first two books in the Bloodsworn Saga series, both by John Gwynne. We then have the Assassin's Apprentice and the Lifeship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb. The shelf ends with The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. I am expecting to get the remainders of the Farseer trilogy and the Lycanius trilogy sometime soon to fill the remainder of the space here. And at the bottom we have a row filled with a bunch of classics, which by the time I took the photos, my cats have already managed to mess up a bit. So let's go quickly through them from left to right. Ulysses, Life on the Mississippi, A Bind-Up of Call of the Wild and White Fang, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, A Bind-Up of A Study in Scarlet and the Sign of the Four, To the Lighthouse, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Treasure Island, The Count of Monte Cristo, Short Story Masterpieces with a Twist Ending Volumes 1 and 2, Sense and Sensibility, Jane Eyre, North and South, Penguin Reader's edition of Jane Eyre, The Snows of Kilimanjaro and Other Stories, The Mystery of the Blue Train, Hercule Poirot Christmas, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, The Big Four, Murder in Mesopotamia, Death on the Nile, Cat Among the Pigeons, Murder on the Orient Express, And Then There Were None, The Odyssey, and The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. We go up on the next set of shelves, which are just a pile of wooden crates I salvaged a while back. Yes, I am cheap. We start with some random adult fantasy. We have The Black-Tongued Thief, two of the books in the Book of Eyes series, followed by the entire Book of the Ancestor trilogy, both by Mark Lawrence. Then we have the first three books in the Gentleman Bastard series, then Promise of Blood, The Name of the Wind, The Black Prism, and to finish off, Empire of the Vampire. Right under, we have another adult fantasy shelf. We start with Nolan by Michael J. Sullivan, followed by Age of War, Age of Myth, and yet another copy of Age of War. I have the two because the online bookseller sent me two by mistake, after which they let me keep them both. I assume it was gonna be too much of a hassle with the return shipping. After that, we have the Rhaeria Revelations series, followed by The Ember Blade and Master of Sorrows. The last one might be a young adult, if I'm not mistaken. And below we have, oh what a surprise, another adult fantasy shelf. Here we have only two authors represented, Joe Abercrombie and Andrzej Sapkowski. From left to right we have The Trouble with Peace, The Wisdom of Crowds, A Little Hatred, The Blade Itself, Before They Are Hanged, Last Argument of Kings, The Last Wish in Bulgarian, Sword of Destiny and the Blood of Elves, also in Bulgarian, and The Tower of Fools. So from there we move on to more adult fantasy. On the left we have some classics, so to speak. Morth, The Alchemist, Wizard's First Rule, The Sword of Shannara, The Goblin Emperor, The Gardens of the Moon, A Wizard of Earthsea, and The Call of Cthulhu and Other Weird Stories. Then to the right of those, we have some more modern ones, starting with the first 5 books in the Dresden Files, then the first 2 books from the Empire of Salt series, and the first 2 books from the Lawful Time series. Moving on to the big shelf, on the very top we have my Sci-Fi Collection. I haven't changed anything about this one besides dusting, as for now I think this is the best place for them. Going quickly through all the books from left to right, we have The Vagrant, Scythe and Thunderhead, Ready Player One, the Everness trilogy in Bulgarian, Cinder, the Hunger Games trilogy, Archipelago and Bulgarian, Archipelago? I don't know how to pronounce that word. Dune, Project Hail Mary, the Metro trilogy in Bulgarian, Future also in Bulgarian, The Fifth Season, Gideon the Ninth and Harrow the Ninth, Foundation, Themis Files Trilogy, Leviathan Wakes, 2001 A Space Odyssey, and I, Robot. Below that and to the left we have adult fantasy. Are you shocked? From left to right we have The Starless Sea, The Savior's Champion, From Blood and Ash, Illumicrate special editions of We Hunt the Flame and We Free the Stars, and Illumicrate special editions of the 3 books in the Greenbone saga. Below that, we have what is meant to be my Samantha Shannon shelf. Currently, there are only 2 books of hers here, The Priory of the Orange Tree and The Bone Season, but I am expecting the rest of the Bone Season series to arrive these days. In the back here, you can see 2 classics, a special edition of Jane Eyre and Crime and Punishment. I put these here because they are quite pretty and I am worried that the cats will make short work of them. I will move them to a more suitable spot soon. Next shelf below houses my Jack Reacher collection. I situated the books to make sure they fit, not in the proper series order, as I buy them cheapest I can find them, which leads to this diversity of size. From the left we have The Midnight Line, Without Fail, Bad Luck and Trouble, The Enemy, Tripwire, Die Trying, Better Off Dead, The Sentinel, No Middle Name, Past Tense, and Echo Burning. On the shelf below, we have a tiny mix of crime and thriller books. Starting from the left, we have The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. Catchy titles, huh? Then The Night Fire, The Ivies, and the first 3 books in the James Bond series. And at the very bottom lives my collection of romance and romantic suspense. We have Heartbreaker, Mercy, Shadow Dance, The Secret, Castles, The Bookshop on the Shore, and The Sweetheart Deal. Going back to the top, we have more adult fantasy. Realmbreaker, Black Sun, The Dragon's Legacy Trilogy, The Bone Shard Daughter, The Winnowing Flame Trilogy, The Life of Pi, and The Watchmaker of Filigree Street. Below those, we have some young adult fantasy. From the left, Vespertine, Sorcery of Thorns, An Enchantment of Ravens, Dark Shores, Broken Wish, Falling Kingdoms, Warrior of the Wild, Wicked Saints and Ruthless Gods, 6 Crimson Cranes, and The Merciful Crow and the Faithless Hawk. Moving on, we have my graphic novel and manga collection. We have Wonder Woman The Lies, Avatar The Last Airbender, The Promise, The Search, and the 3 Parts of Imbalance, The Dragon Prince of Momochi House, Volumes 1 through 5, La Cathédrale des Abîmes, Full Metal Alchemist, Volumes 1 through 5. I have Volumes 1 through 4 in French, and then Volumes 4 and 5 in English. The Vinland Saga, Volumes 1 through 4. And then we have my very tiny historical fiction collection, Dragon Teeth, Where the Crawdads Sing, The Second Sleep, The Angel's Game, and Ants and Gods. I am expecting some additions soon though, so stay tuned. Back to the top and the rightmost part of this shelf, we have Sarah J. Maas, the first 5 books in the Throne of Glass series, followed by House of Earth and Blood. I know the series was not in order, and I know a lot of the other series also weren't, but I was short on time and still plan to rearrange stuff better in the near future. Going 1 row down, we have some more young adult fantasy. Secondhand hardbacks of An Ember in the Ashes and A Torch Against the Night, the all but the first book of An Ember in the Ashes series in paperback, Crown of Feathers, Shadow of the Fox and Soul of the Sword, Before the Storm, God of War, and The Ivory Key. Moving on to my more middle grade-ish books, we have the Percy Jackson series, Quidditch Through the Ages, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Pippi Longstocking, Peter Pan, Song of the Far Isles, Howl's Moving Castle, Little House in the Big Woods, Farm Boy and Little House on the Prairie, The Little Prince, Nobody's Boy in Bulgarian, and Sweet Home Alaska. On the shelf below, we have more middle grade as well as some children's classics. Journey to the Center of the Earth, Around the World in 80 Days, A Christmas Carol, Skunk and Badger, the Harry Potter series box set, Ella Enchanted, the first 5 books in the Enola Holmes series, and Northern Lights. The last row on the bottom houses my nonfiction, though I haven't unpacked all of the nonfiction I own, so this is just a part of it. We have Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, a book of beautiful cycling trails in France, a book about ancient technologies in Bulgarian, The 4-Hour Workweek, First Man, which is a book about the life of Neil Armstrong, Death by Black Hole by Neil deGrasse Tyson, a book about the life of Elon Musk, Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, and Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. Moving on to the very last shelf, we have my Illumicrate books and a few random hardbacks. From the left, the Illumicrate special editions of The Song of Achilles and Circe, The Prison Healer, Down Comes the Night, The Drowned Woods, Book of Night, Portrait of a Thief, A River Enchanted, This Woven Kingdom, A Marvelous Light, Little Thieves, Iron Widow, and Gallant. And on the very last row we have some young adult fantasy, the Shadow and Bone Trilogy, the Six of Crow duology, the King of Scars duology, Caraval, Call Down the Hawk, The Bear and the Nightingale, Strange the Dreamer, and the first 2 books in the Stormheart series.
Now, some of you might have wondered why I don't have the Wheel of Time, and you are wrong. I do have it. It is right here above my TV set. It's just a big collection, so it doesn't fit on any of the other rows, and I didn't want to split them, so I keep them here.
All of this amounts to a total of 374 books, if my math is correct, with 303 paperbacks, 65 hardbacks, and 6 leather-bound books. In terms of genre, we have fantasy heavily dominating with 229 books, classics taking second place with 39, and sci-fi not far behind with 32. Everything else is way lower in numbers, obviously.
So there you go. Order has been achieved for like a week. I'm also not entirely satisfied with my shelf organization. I think I might change it in the future. So if you have any advice or comments about it, let me know. I'd be happy to hear what you have to say. I am certainly out of inspiration, so I wouldn't mind relying on yours. Thank you so much for watching. It truly warms my heart to see you here. And drop a like if you have a spare. Have a great day, and I wish you all a bunch of ebooks. Once upon a time, there was a person who wasn't subscribed to my channel. And then they did. And they lived happily ever after. This could be you.